Welcome to 5 Digital Asset Security Risks Someone Should Have Warned Me About, and the stories you need to hear so you can learn to avoid them now. My name is Todd DeCapua. I wanted to go ahead and share this session with you as I'd recently presented it at a very large security conference, but I think it's critical and the timing couldn't be better to be able to get these ideas out so that you could mitigate these risks now and be prepared in the very near future. A few of the discussion points that I'm hoping to cover with you today. Wanted to provide you with a quick background and a story. Also, look at what are some of these digital assets that you may be seeing or not seeing in your environment today. Also, look at 5 digital asset security risks, and then provide a little bit of a wrap up. So, as we move to this quick background and a story, one of the things that I wanted to share is I've come up as a developer, as a program leader, as a director of technology, leader of people. And the thing that I have found interesting is as I've worked through a lot in performance engineering, I've continuously seen the correlation of security as well. And one of the things that I've done in my career is consciously made a shift to spend some time in security. Well, what that's enabled me to do is gain some additional insights and perspective, and as well as learnings that I can apply and also share. So that's kind of a very quick background and kind of where my journey has taken me. The other pieces here that I wanted to share is things like SSL certificates. They're out there. You may or may not know how they are managed. This very specific story was for a smaller web-based application. We were getting ready to host a very large customer conference and getting ready to launch something called Software Insights. And as we were coming into our customer advisory board, one of the things that ended up happening was we had some SSL certificates expire, and they were actually expiring as I was flying out to this conference. Upon landing, I was notified that our application was not working and some additional research would need to be done. So, again, I needed to dig in, start looking around at some of these AWS servers and see where things were going wrong. Quickly to find out that, in fact, it was a certificate that had expired, and my infrastructure team thought that those were the development servers that we ended up not using, not the production servers that were actually hosting everything. So again, very simple thing like an SSL certificate, an experience that I had had, and caused a bit of short-term stress. But we did get a new certificate. We did implement it, get it installed, so that when we held this customer meeting on Sunday morning, that we were able to have everything up and running. The second one here you can see is the Syrian Electronic Army. This is a story that I love to tell. It highlights how some of the organizations out there today are looking to do things like take over your domain. This was the Wall Street Journal. This was also the Syrian Electronic Army. They were able to take over the wallstreetjournal.com for a period of time and control that domain, sending users to wherever they had wanted to. The third bullet here, you can see revenue, brand, customer, and competitive advantage. So these are kind of 4 areas that I often look at. And as you share these ideas with people, um, these 5 ideas of your digital assets and some things that you can do, I often like to bring it back to the business value. So, what is the impact to revenue of any of these types of um, impacts, or technology breaches, other security risks that lie out there with your digital assets. Um, Brand, what happens to your brand? How about customer attraction and retention? And then also from a competitive perspective, how are you positioning yourself differently than your competitors in the marketplace today? So, again, just a quick background, some stories, and reflection points on how I would suggest we want to look at this. Next, what are your digital assets? So again, we're going to speak a little bit about digital asset security. I think it's important that we first define, maybe what are some of these digital assets that we could start to look at and speak about today. So you can see them laid out here first with domain management and strategy. Again, many organizations that I have worked with have thousands of domains in their domain portfolio. How are they managed? What is your strategy around your management of those domains? Often, this is an area of opportunity. Number two, online brand protection. So when we spoke about potential brand impact to your organization or other organizations in your space, what is it you can do to protect your brand? Much of this is through automation, through big data, through some analysis. Oftentimes, you'll see artificial intelligence built into it as well. But again, what is it that you can do to protect this digital asset called the online brand protection? Some other areas: DNS services and analytics. This is kind of the backbone of many of your digital assets, is the DNS that it is running or operating on. Many of you may be familiar with some of the larger DDoS attacks. We're seeing an increased frequency and size of these. These are then directly impacting those DNS services. So thinking about that as a digital asset and how are you able to proactively manage that is another critical area. Number four, SSL certificates. So I told you my story. Um, and as you think about your organization, there's several different types of SSL certificates. There's also a variety of ways that organizations are managing SSL certificates today. So, a very scary area, something I would highly recommend you asking a lot of those right questions to understand a bit more about how SSL certificates are being managed in your organization. The fifth one that I've laid out here is social media username registration and management. So, even something as basic as your organization is getting ready to do some new marketing campaigns or launch some new products. Are those social media usernames even available? Or the things like that that are available? How is it that you are registering these? How is it that you are managing these? Who has access to them? Who is that voice for your organization? So again, these are kind of the five digital assets I thought would be great to touch on right now. And again, this is what I had shared previously at a very large security conference. Um, as we look at each one of these different digital assets, there's three different ways that we can think about this and approach them. So one is being able to consolidate and secure your digital assets. A second being monitor for threats and enforcing your rights. And then lastly is being able to optimize and promote your digital portfolio. So we could look at each one of these independently. For today, I want to spend some time really focusing on optimize and promote your digital portfolio. I think it's critical that we do look at the first two. However, for today, we just need to focus on optimize. Many organizations have kind of over the years accumulated a variety of these digital assets. Again, whether we're talking about your domain management and strategy, or online brand protection, or DNS services and analytics, or SSL certificates, or the social media username registration and management, really these kind of things take on their own um, personas, and every organization's a little bit different. Maybe within the group that you work in, they're managed a certain way, but in another organization, it's managed a completely different way. So as you think about these digital assets across that enterprise, how is it you can optimize them, and how is it that you can promote that digital portfolio? So as a reminder, these are the five um, areas or focus points that we can look at today around optimizing and promoting your digital portfolio. For this video, we're going to focus on online brand protection. For number two, online brand protection, you can see there's kind of 3 points on here that I wanted to cover, and really thinking about online brand protection as well as how does that relate to the broader digital asset security risks. This plays a fairly key part, and you can see by going through the 3 bolded points here: protection of your digital assets, monitoring for threats, and enforcing your rights. We cover a lot of different areas, some being proactive, some being very active, and other where we're kind of coming back to get the right enforcement needed to protect our brands. So if we look at the first one in a little bit more detail: protection of your digital assets. And what does that digital brand protection really start with? Well, it starts with securing your digital assets. So all 5 points that we rolled through at the beginning, how is it you're able to protect things like your domain names? Really looking at that from a domain name perspective. Other things like the social media usernames. Again, how is it that you're able to protect those digital assets? There's many more that will come out, but really kind of starting to ask that question of how can we do it? What are we doing about that today? How do we do that today? Who's ultimately responsible and accountable for the protection of your digital assets? Again, all great questions to start this conversation and ensure that as it would relate to online brand protection, you're actively thinking about this and addressing it proactively. Second, monitoring for threats. So as you all are well aware, in our digital age today, there's many more channels that give risk or exposure opportunities to be able to reach out to your customers. Also, increasing our risk as an organization. So again, in this digital age, let's think through all these different channels. Let's think through how is it that some of these threats are going to come to our customers. How are those threats that are going to impact our customers? And again, let's think about probability. Let's think about impact from a customer perspective, and then let's look retrospectively into how is it that that could also increase our risk as an organization. And let's focus on a few of those points quite quickly. So again, how is it we can monitor for those threats where our customers are going to be impacted with a very high probability and a high impact? And let's make sure that we're monitoring for those threats. Again, thinking all about our digital asset security risks as well as online brand protection. Lastly, is enforcing your rights. So there's this continuous battle that is raging on, really looking at all these different online infringements. It is fought across many of fronts. As you would imagine, there's a lot of activities from a counterfeit perspective. There's also perspectives that we could look at from a domain name and also from a social media username, or the social networks, as you can see, um, even to the mobile app stores. Again, as you would look for some specific brands in mobile app stores, what you're going to find is it can be very confusing, which one of these apps is actually the official app. So again, a third point here that I think it's critical that we all talk about and think about to be able to learn from. How is it that you are able to enforce your rights? There are some agencies out there with some legal protections that, again, it helps to be aware of so that you could use them as you would see fit for your organization. So, as we look to wrap up this conversation around digital asset security risks, the 5 risks which we walked through at the beginning, spent a little bit of time, focusing on these in this video, but thinking about domain management and strategy, thinking about the online brand protection, DNS services and analytics, SSL certificates, social media username registration and management. Really, what I want to do is give you the conversation points, the discussions to be able to take this forward and say, right, we need to focus a little bit more on online brand protection. What are those conversations that I need to be having? Why is it important to our business? Is it tied into our brand? Is it tied into revenue? Is it, how about your customer attraction and retention or competitive advantage? What are those elements, and why has this become very important for your customers and for your business? So again, as we kind of wrap up, want to bring it right back to these 5 points, and hopefully you're feeling a bit more informed so that you can have those types of discussions and start the dialogue, because these are, I believe, the five largest digital asset security risks that exist today, and having these conversations will increase the awareness and reduce the risk across many organizations around the world today, hopefully making for a much better experience for all of us as customers and consumers of various products and services from a number of organizations just like yours. So, with that, I would just like to say thank you for taking the time to listen a little bit. Hopefully, you've been able to learn. I would ask that whatever you have learned today, that you also share these. I'm fairly active on Twitter, as well as a number of other social media sites. You can see that my handle is appperfeng, so that's standing for Application Performance Engineering. Would also encourage you go to our website of effectiveperformanceengineering.com. Was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to author a book with O'Reilly Media titled Effective Performance Engineering, and they have offered electronic copies of that as a free download from this site. So, again, thank you again for this opportunity to speak with you a little bit more about five digital asset security risks and some of the stories and things that you can be doing today to help protect you and your organizations. Thanks again.